The Spin-off Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Old El Paso. Does game day hosting feel like an extreme sport? Not anymore. With Old El Paso, feeding your hungry crowd is oh so easy. Old El Paso's crunchy stand-and stuffed shells, bold seasonings, and squeezable sauces are fumble-free, flavor-packed, and perfect for cheering on your team. Football season is taco season with Old El Paso. Level up your next tailgate or watch party. Shop game day essentials at oldelpaso.com.
There's no better feeling than a personal win, and the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you do just that. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
When the Facts Change is brought to you by the Spin-off Podcast Network in partnership with KiwiBank, the bank for Kiwi looking to get ahead in business and in life. A bank that delivers expertise in banking know-how, smart advice for business owners wanting to invest, grow their business or diversify. A bank that adapts with technology through the lens of its people and customers. It is a bank with heart that is driven by its purpose. Kiwi making Kiwi better off. So Motueka is an absolutely gorgeous place where lots of people go to do work, go on holiday, and it's their home. 8,000 people. But at the moment, there is just 5 houses to rent in Motueka. Motueka is a long way from anywhere. You could call it a provincial town, a holiday seaside town. So the rents shouldn't be amongst the most expensive in the country, but they are. $600 a week for a 3-bedroomed home in Motueka. So how do we solve this problem? Well, this week on When the Facts Change, we speak to Miriana Stephens, who is a trustee of Te Awhina Marae and a director of Wakatu, who has just built 20 brand new homes attached to the marae. And in this week's episode, she goes through the various dramas, the thinking, the strategy, the delivery of these homes, what it took in terms of capital, how it was planned to be connected to the land and to connect the people together in a way that meant this isn't just a decision about a home and whether or not it should be 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms and have a bathroom. This was a process that asked, should there be a laundry? What should the homes look like in terms of the marae? All of these things are different. And we find out how this extra housing supply was created in Motueka and look at what's needed to do a really big job in increasing housing supply across the Motu. That's this week on When the Facts Change. Well, kia ora, and welcome to Miriana Stephens, who is the trustee at Te Awhina Marae and who'll be speaking later this week at the Poverty by Design conference being run by the Stout Centre at Victoria University. Welcome into When the Facts Change, Miriana.
Kia ora, thank you for the opportunity.
It's lovely to see you. And from the top half of the North Island, could you give us a sense of where you are, who you work with, what you're doing day in, day out?
Kia ora, well tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe koutou hoki. Ko tainui me mā tātua o ku waka, i te taho tōku karaua ko Ngāti Rārua te iwi, tua wharepapa te maunga Motueka te awa. Ko Te Awhina te marae, ko Miriana Stephens tōku ingoa, nō reira, tēnā rā tātou katoa. So I always say I come from the best 2 places in Aotearoa, New Zealand. My grandmother's people are from Tauranga Moana, so I'm of Ngāti Ranginui descent. And then my grandfather's people are from Te Tawihu, the top of the South Island, and the metropolis of Motueka. In my introduction, I just wanted to acknowledge where I am today at Te Awhina Marae, cloaked beneath 2 of our maunga, Tua Wharepapa and Pukeone, and our river, runs, the Motueka River runs here. And of course, I connect into the people. So the place and people that I come from is very special to me.
And I'm curious about what are the sort of housing issues around where you are, because you're going to be speaking in a session in the conference about housing, and it's a subject close to my heart, i.e. I'm a little bit obsessed with. So I'm curious about what's happening there around where you are.
There is a real housing need where I live in Motueka. Motueka's always been known for, I guess, horticulture, seafood. So when I start to think about the main industries that are here in Motueka, we've always had people come in to the area, to the region. And it's a real pain at Christmas time because you can't even get across the main road, right? So there's all of those sorts of things. And so housing, is really important. And, I'll give you some sort of stats. I constantly look on Trade Me, and there's only really, I guess, 5 houses at a time, if that, for rent.
Wow.
Because it's highly competitive. You're looking, for a 2-bedroom is around between $400, $450 a week. A 3-bedroom is, around $600, and, a 4-bedroom is $700 plus. So it's really inaccessible and unaffordable. And when I think about the entities that I belong to, and there's, many, we've got our tribal authorities, Te Runanga o Aotearoa, Wakatu Incorporation, Whakarewa Trust, and of course the marae. We're constantly thinking about housing and the opportunities that we can provide to our own families, and also, to the wider community. So I would say between us as entities, I guess having a housing strategy is quite important. And we were just fortunate that Te Awhina Marae was able to access funding in about, I had to remember this, in 2022, where we built 20 houses for whānau on land leased from Wakatu Incorporation and funded by Te Puni Kōkiri. So, again, when you have access to land, access to funding, anything is possible.
Could you give us a description of those 20 homes and, how you went through the process of building them? What is the special thing about them that really works in your place? Just to give us a sense of how easy or hard it was to do this and why it's needed.
So I think, first of all, the whenua, the land's really important to us. It's where our ancestors, our tupuna, lived. It was actually one of the original occupation reserves that was selected by the New Zealand Company agent in 1842. And our tupuna were actually given or allocated the particular blocks, and these blocks then were returned to Wakatu Incorporation in 1977. So obviously we're currently the biggest property litigation on foot in the country. We have been for a few years now.
This is through the Nelson Tenths process? Yep.
Correct. So the Nelson Tenths, and so we're battling still for the return of land. But I think what it shows, the land that the marae is on, again, what we can do when we have access to land. So we did a lot of, I guess, engagement with our whānau, because it's all very well, you need to know what the needs, of your community are. And so we spent several months engaging with our families as to if they were to live together again as a community, what might that look like to them? And I often have a bit of a chuckle to myself, because when we were going through that particular process, we had conversations around, what were we prepared to share? How big did the houses need to be? What about fences? Could we have living fences? And how would we live together as whānau? So that took a bit of time, and I think that was really valuable, because it gave us a better understanding of how we might design what we call our papakainga, our housing development. And when I say about a chuckle, because we had conversations around shared laundry spaces, And then, my aunties might say to me, oh, you're trying to, turn us into the East Enders. And I said, well, actually, we live on the West End of town, but Kei Te Pai, all good. So I think there was a lot of laughs, there was a lot of fun, but really understanding the needs of family, that was really important. And also the reconnection back to their whenua, back to that land and the importance, of that land. So once we sort of went through that process of understanding their needs, the other important part to us was actually we needed a really good team in place. We needed to have a person that could be across the budget. We needed a person who was going to be the project manager because there's there's the contractors and the subbies. And so we spent a bit of time putting that team together. And that team also had to be consist of our cultural advisors. Because for us, the tikanga and the protocols of, for example, laying the Maori stone, when contractors came on to the marae, it was important that they had a pōwhiri because they become part of us. They become part of the land. So, I was saying there would seem to be a lot of hangi that we were having to cook for the roof shouts. But again, we were able to negotiate with the contractor to have 3 of our young people as apprentices on the project. So there was a lot of, I think, by design, how we would deliver this project whilst engaging everyone on board, including funders, including the community, so that they were part, of the build.
And what were the things that were different that came out of it in terms of how the houses were built, how they're used, whether or not they've got driveways and laundries, and what was the sort of end result?
The end result, well, for us, we say we want to be better kaitiaki. We want to be better custodians of the environment. So again, we were able to think differently and to be able to look at new innovations. So, for example, when you look at the foundations, we use some, technology screw piles, giant ones actually. So again, we were able to have a better, I guess, imprint, on the land. Solar was incorporated into the into the program of work, and again, we're not solar experts, so there was a lot of throughout this whole process, if I'm honest, there's a lot of learning and education. I think the designs of the whare were quite important, so they look like mini wharenui. So, you've got the beautiful sort of gables and things like that coming off, and even the incorporation of some of our important, the narrative around some of the designs that were incorporated. So again, telling our connection to the land, to the whenua, thinking of being aspirational. I think the other important part was the selection process, and challenging when there is a need for housing, and we only have so many houses. So whakapapa, connection to the land's important, but also service. And my cousin has a great saying, if service is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you.
And how did you decide who got the 20 houses? I'm guessing you've got 4,000 owners of Wakatu, so there must have been huge demand.
Yeah, and so the process was we come back to, I guess, what we call our ancestor list. And so whilst we have a lot of owners or shareholders actually in Wakatu, not all the shareholders are descendants of the ancestor list. So we're quite specific in terms of who has access to the housing. And so therefore, yes, whakapapa, but, contribution, because we live on the marae, we're a working marae. And so we offer, our facilities of, the wharenui, the wharekai and other buildings we have on here. Potentially we could be booked, 300 days of the year.
Wow.
For hosting. So we're a very active marae with different groups coming in and out of the marae. Programs, a lot of, unfortunately, people in our community, we've got challenges around mental health, health conditions, around diabetes and all of those things. So we have a health centre. We deliver different programs to support families in the wider community, and we're the only carving school, so the arts are quite important to us. So we're the carving school in the top of the south, and so we have a team out of there working, doing commissions. And then we have a master plan of the marae, which is a 100-year program of, and actually it reminds me of a bit of a mini campus, but we were really fortunate to have students who were training in architecture, thinking about different materials, new technologies that could be introduced, young people. So working with our families, if you looked at a 100-year plan for the marae, in the context of the wider community of Motueka, then what does that new plan look like?
Yeah, so how many homes?
Well, and that's the interesting thing. So we have the 20 that we've built in the late 80s. We also built 6 two-bedroom houses because we wanted our elders, our kaumātua, living on the marae. So we've just finished the upgrade of those 6 houses. So we have 26 houses. In the future plans, we're sort of looking at more, I guess higher density housing. So it might be 2 or 3 stories. So the students have designed what we call it's a little bit like a hostel environment. So I think in there, there's 52 spaces in there, so many 1 bedrooms, so many 2 bedrooms, and so many 3 bedrooms with shared facilities. And so potentially, from future housing, because we are an active marae and we've got big programs of work around education, high water health, and these commercial opportunities in toi Māori, we're really wanting to be able to think strategically about how we bring a campus or a community alive, founded in shared values and a vision to be prosperous.
So there's land, there's a need, and people. And one of the problems that many iwi organisations and landowners talk about is a lack of finance. Could you tell us a bit more about how you managed to solve that problem and, your ideas on how others could do it?
Yeah, we were, at the time we were putting together our housing program, there were sort of, I guess, three government agencies that we were sort of working with, and some of them are interrelated, but there was Te Puni Kōkiri, HUD, and Kāinga Ora. Now, I do a lot of, projects, research, and R&D and innovation programs of work, and so usually you might be dealing with sort of one funder. So I was struggling, if I'm honest, trying to deal with 3 groups. So what we needed to do and what we were successful at doing is just saying, look, we've got a track record of delivering big programs of work. Ideally, we would just have one funder who would then deal with, if there was infrastructure costs, maybe with the others who held different, funding arrangements. But we only wanted one person or one group to deal with, and there was an agreement on that. So we just went directly with Te Puni Kōkiri. So I think we were the biggest housing project on their books at the time. So that helped immensely. We also had an excellent relationship with the Rata Foundation, which is one of the community foundations, who also supported us. And then again, we were lucky just with our, our hapu, Wakatū Incorporation, Whakarewa Trust, who both have, large interests in Motueka, and our tribal authorities to be able to make up the shortfall. And then when we looked at a loan, again, we had probably 4 banks wanting to back us. We went through quite an extensive interview process because, again, we had criteria that we needed to meet. Our houses are rentals. Some of our families will only be in there for a certain period of time because we're staircasing them into home ownership and homes potentially offered by our hapu and iwi groups, but they need to be, support around financial literacy, home ownership and those sorts of things. So they're on programs. And so, we were really fortunate actually that we decided to go with, again, with the Rata Foundation for, very good terms in terms of the loan.
Instead of the banks.
This episode is brought to you by Brock's Peppermint Candy Canes. Whether you're trimming a tree, adding to your stockings, or making a warm cup of cocoa, Brock's Peppermint Candy Canes make any moment sweeter. And with their great taste and refreshing mint flavor, the holiday spirit tastes like Brock's. Brock's, make moments sweeter. Visit Brock's.com to shop the full range and recipe inspiration today.
This episode is brought to you by Old El Paso. Does game day hosting feel like an extreme sport? Not anymore. With Old El Paso, feeding your hungry crowd is oh so easy. Old El Paso's crunchy stand-and stuffed shells, bold seasonings, and squeezable sauces are fumble-free, flavor-packed, and perfect for cheering on your team. Football season is taco season with Old El Paso. Level up your next tailgate or watch party. Shop game day essentials at oldelpaso.com.
This is a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup sound experiment. We're looking to find the perfect way to hear Reese's so you'll buy more of them. Here we go. Reese's. 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 Hey, get out of here, you little stinker. Reese's.
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 Peanut Butter Cups. That breathy one sounded very creepy, am I right?
Because one of the complaints or worries that people have with iwi organisations and iwi land is that the banks find it very difficult to lend to get houses built on that land because there is not a discrete title to put a mortgage over, i.e. there's not one person or one couple who owns that chunk of land which the bank can then put a juicy mortgage against. How did you experience that, and how did we get over this issue, which is it's a very what I'd call I've read a book called Land, which talks about the English process of carving up bits of land, giving title to individuals, and that's how the whole English economy exported around the world worked, and we did that here too. And our banking system is designed for that. How do we get around that?
We're fortunate because we have a lot, when I think about the, like a Wakatu Incorporation, like a Whakarewa Trust, they're very well known, in the banking world. And so they have strong balance sheets. So that I guess that's helps. And the marae, we're an incorporated society. So we entered into a long-term lease with Wakatu, and that was sufficient for the banks. I think the other part to it too is that because we had significant funding from a government agency that also supported, the program of work. So I think we had a lot of things in favour. But you do need to, I've sort of experienced other things. You need to be very good at articulating or, again, having the information available. We had folders for the banks that had all of the, certificates, the lease agreements, everything was all, evidenced. So from their perspective, it was very easy for them to see, what we were doing. We, at the time too, with all our costs, we managed to negotiate fixed costs, which was pretty much unheard of, for the big build, but we just went hard, value engineering, everything was done pretty thorough. So I think there was a lot of trust and confidence with every partner that we had. And we also invested in communications. It's something that, every project I'm involved in, I always make sure there's an allocation for how we communicate the projects that we're doing. And that investment, whether it's through, with the whānau or, through newsletters, through updates, it really pays its way. If that makes...
What problems did it avoid? Because often when you hear about housing projects, there can be, community backlashes, council problems. It's people don't like change, and so I'm curious about how you managed to, bring everyone with you.
Yeah, we had very good comms. I think we were the number I think we even, for the South Island anyway, we were on, so we really thought about our social media platforms that we would be telling the story, and actually who's telling the story was really important. So was it the tenants? Was it my aunt who's the chair of the, of the committee? Was it one of the project team, the contractors talking about their experiences? So we really shared the love in terms of who was communicating the projects. We had an excellent relationship with council. We brought them along the process. So again, just whatever stage we were at, and again, just sending out, if it was a newsletter or an update on a social media platform, it was all there for them to see.
What surprised you through the process? What would you think, I'll do that differently next time, or I'll tell other people about this before they start?
Yeah, I think what we actually did a SWOT, after we do that after each project, really, to see actually. So what really went well for us was the team. And we're all different too, because you have an engineer, you have our cultural, the whānau engagement person who actually happened to be an ex-builder. But, it was all of those peoples and personalities. And I think, trying to build a team and ensuring that they were aware of the responsibility and the commitment. So that team now is working on other projects that we've got happening at the marae. So, to some of you, you've got a chance to leave. I often joke we're a little bit like the Hotel California. Once you check in, it's very hard to check out. So I think that, the investing, again, the time and the people and the team was really important. And if would I do some things differently? Yeah, that's a really good question, Bernard. I mean, I think some of, maybe it's not until the people get in. The building of the houses is the easiest part, if I'm honest. It's the investment now that we're putting in to the people, to our families who are living in there, and what comes with that. And that's why the marae is so perfectly positioned, because, if it's certain, if there are health challenges, if there are employment thing, we can actually connect them into whether it's ourselves or the wider community for particular support. And, a lot of those families who come in to the marae are really reconnecting back to whakapapa. We can see what's happening out on the streets, that identity and that belonging, and really being able to think about their future and making mokopuna decisions. The marae offers, I think, that opportunity. So it's there now. The challenge is, how are we going to take that first cohort to be able to be the change agents, or to be able to be the influencers for the wider families and and our community. So that's probably now what's exciting, but also blimmin' scary about what the future holds for us.
So just finally, sort of stepping back and thinking about this issue right across the country, what would you say to those people who have control of the levers, the funds, the rules, if you were going to really solve some of these issues? Because the scale of the problem is enormous. Motueka, 8,000 people, and there's only 5 homes available for rent. Māori home ownership, way less than 50%, and way overrepresented in homelessness stats. There seems to be an enormous need for a huge number of homes, and not just any home, but homes in the right place and done in the right way. What would you say to those people with the levers?
Well, I think they have to trust us. I think that we can do big scale projects. We can make a difference. And so I think there is. I don't think there's a belief that we can actually deliver, which is actually really. Terrible, if I'm honest, because again, when I think about these projects that we deliver under budget and ahead of time, right? We actually have the capability to deliver, and it's whether or not they want to devolve that power and control out to communities to be delivering. So that would probably be my first comment, because it worries me that potentially government's housing strategy is one of them anyway, is prison, right? The incarceration rates, and they're not getting any better. And so where do people, and that's why the marae is so important to me and a lot of us, because I fundamentally believe this is where we can restore and heal people. But we need the, and so therefore, what does that look like? And so that's what we're trying to create here. So, fundamentally, yes, there's all of these things happening, but I think we have to get on and you have to prove that you can actually deliver. And the beauty about this particular project was it wasn't just a marae project, it was a Motueka project. You go anywhere in the town, from the businesses, from philanthropy, everybody knows about this project and the opportunity that it presents. So I feel like everybody lives at the Papakainga, if I'm honest, in Motueka. And I think that's what that's given us. It's given us some, really good exposure and built a lot of trust within our community.
Miriana Stephens, a trustee at Te Awhina Marae and a director of Wakatu Inc. Thank you so much for being on When the Facts Change and telling us about all the building, which it sounds like is still going on in the background there.
Yeah, we've got some big building projects on at the moment, so yes.
Thank you very much. Ngā mihi nui.
Kia ora.
When the Facts Change was brought to you by the Spin-Off Podcast Network, together with KiwiBank. Visit kiwibank.co.nz to find out how KiwiBank are making Kiwi better off.
Does your brand have something important to say through meaningful messaging that reaches the right audience? At The Spin-Off, we work closely with our partners to create bespoke campaigns that bring value to both your brand and our audience. If you're interested in learning more about partnering with us, email Beck, that's BEC, at thespinoff.co.nz.
Hi, I'm Anna Rafferty-Connell, Senior Writer at The Spin-Off. Join me and special guests Emma Wehe-Peihana and Hayden Donnell live on stage at Q Theatre in Auckland on December 11 as we review the year. For a night of easy laughs and some razor-sharp takes, book tickets at thespinoff.co.nz/events.
The Spin-Off Podcast Network.